The year is 632 AD. The streets of Medina are shrouded in mourning. The Prophet Muhammad, the man who united the Arabian Peninsula under the banner of Islam, is gone. His death leaves a void, and the Muslim community, facing rebellion, false prophets, and internal divisions, must now decide its fate. Who will lead Islam through this crucible of uncertainty? This is where the story of the Rashidun Caliphate begins, a tale of resilience, faith, and leadership. In the first part of this series, we explored the Prophet's life and his enduring legacy. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we highly recommend watching it first to gain a deeper understanding of the challenges awaiting his successors. In this episode, we turn to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first Caliph, who faced the Ummah's greatest test during the Ridda Wars. We will present the traditional narrative of early Islamic history as recorded by influential Abbasid-era historians such as Ibn Ishaq, al-Tabari, and others. These chroniclers provide a rich yet complex account of Islam's formative years. We are fully aware, however, that many of these sources were written centuries after the events they describe, raising questions about their reliability. While this episode focuses on the traditional accounts, we will address these historiographical challenges in depth in our next episode, exploring how time and political agendas shaped these narratives. Join us now as we embark on this critical chapter where Abu Bakr's steadfast leadership ensures Islam's survival and lays the foundation for its astonishing expansion. This is the story of the Rashidun Caliphate. The year is 632 AD. Medina is in mourning. The Prophet Muhammad, the man who had united the Arabian Peninsula under the banner of Islam, has passed away. His death is a seismic event, plunging the Muslim community into grief and uncertainty. In this fragile moment, the Ummah faces its first great test. Who will lead Islam after Muhammad? The stakes are existential. Some tribes reject the authority of Medina, claiming their allegiance was personal to Muhammad. Others refuse to pay zakat, the charitable tax that supports the community's poor and vulnerable. Worse still, opportunistic figures rise to claim prophethood, threatening to fracture the unity of the Muslim state. Amid this turbulence, one man steps forward, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the closest companion of Muhammad. His leadership during this critical period ensures the survival of Islam and lays the foundation for its remarkable expansion. The question of succession is urgent. Soon after Muhammad's death, leaders of the Ansar, the Muslim supporters from Medina, gather at Saqifa, a meeting place. They propose one of their own as the leader of the Muslim community. However, the Muhajirun, the emigrants from Mecca, argue that the caliphate should remain within the Quraysh, Muhammad's tribe, to preserve the unity of the Ummah. Among the Muhajirun, Umar ibn al-Khattab, a towering figure in Islamic history, stands and proclaims, "Who among us is more deserving than Abu Bakr, the one who stood by the Prophet in the cave, the one who was called the second of the two in the Quran?" The assembly agrees, and Abu Bakr is chosen as the first caliph. His selection is not without controversy, as some factions initially refused to pledge allegiance. Nevertheless, Abu Bakr is recognized as a leader of unmatched piety and wisdom, chosen to guide the community through this crisis. William Montgomery Watt was a Scottish historian and Orientalist, died in 2006. He was an Anglican priest and served as Professor of Arabic and Islamic Studies at the University of Edinburgh from 1964 to 1979. And was also a prominent contributor to the field of Quranic studies. Regarding those events, he writes, Abu Bakr's election was a critical moment in Islamic history, not merely as a political decision, but as a deliberate effort to safeguard the unity of the Muslim community. No sooner is Abu Bakr elected than the scale of rebellion becomes clear. Across Arabia, tribes that had recently embraced Islam now reject its authority. Many refuse to pay zakat, while others follow self-proclaimed prophets. Among these false prophets are figures such as Tulayha al-Asadi, a charismatic leader from Central Arabia, Sajah bint al-Harith, a prophetess who commands a significant following, and Musaylima ibn Habib, known as Musaylima the Liar, whose influence in Yamama makes him the most formidable of Abu Bakr's enemies. Faced with this widespread rebellion, Abu Bakr's advisors suggest leniency, perhaps compromising on zakat to maintain peace. But Abu Bakr refuses to yield. Abu Bakr's firm stance ensures that Islam is not reduced to a collection of disparate tribes, but remains a unified religious and political entity. As historian Hugh Kennedy observes, the Ridda Wars were a defining moment, not just militarily but ideologically. They affirmed that Islam was more than a personal faith. It was a collective community bound by shared obligations. To suppress the rebellions, Abu Bakr turns to Khalid ibn al-Walid, the brilliant military commander whose victories during the Prophet's lifetime earned him the title, the Sword of Allah. In Central Arabia, Tulayha al-Asadi gathers a large force, challenging Medina's authority. Khalid leads a smaller, disciplined army to confront him at the Battle of Buzaka in 632. Employing classic tactics of deception, Khalid feigns a retreat, drawing Tulayha's forces into overextending their lines. At the decisive moment, Khalid's cavalry encircles the rebels, crushing their resistance. Tulayha himself flees the battlefield, and his rebellion collapses. Though later reconciled with Islam, Tulayha's defeat is a major victory for Abu Bakr's forces. Of all the false prophets, none is as dangerous as Musaylima, whose stronghold in Yamama makes him a formidable adversary. Musaylima commands a large and well-organized force, threatening the very survival of the Muslim state. The confrontation at Yamama is one of the bloodiest battles in early Islamic history. The battlefield, later known as the Garden of Death, becomes a site of ferocious combat. Khalid leads the Muslim forces in a series of coordinated attacks, but the rebels fight with desperate tenacity. Casualties mount on both sides. In a climactic moment, Khalid orders a concentrated assault on Musaylima's position. Washi ibn Harb, a former slave seeking redemption, hurls a spear that kills Musaylima, shattering the rebels' morale. Leaderless, their forces crumble. Historian Fred Donner writes, "The defeat of Musaylima at Yamama was not just a military victory, it was a psychological triumph that restored the confidence of the Ummah in its unity and destiny." Sajah bint al-Harith, a prophetess allied with Musaylima, initially gains significant support in northern Arabia. However, after Musaylima's death, her position weakens. Khalid pursues her forces and secures her surrender without further bloodshed. This campaign demonstrates Khalid's ability not only to fight but also to negotiate, minimizing unnecessary loss of life while securing Abu Bakr's authority. By 633 AD, the Ridda Wars are over. The Arabian Peninsula is once again united under Islam. Abu Bakr's resolve and Khalid's military brilliance have preserved the Ummah from fragmentation. The outcomes of the Ridda Wars are profound. The unification of Arabia creates a stable foundation for the Islamic State. The enforcement of zakat reinforces the principle that Islam is a collective system of governance, not merely a personal faith. The successful suppression of rebellion demonstrates that Islam can endure challenges to its authority. Michael Allen Cook, born in 1940, is a British historian and scholar of Islamic history. Cook is the general editor of the New Cambridge History of Islam and member of Fellowship of the British Academy, an award granted by the British Academy to leading academics for their distinction in the humanities and social sciences. In his book, The Quran, a very short introduction, he wrote, "Abu Bakr's Caliphate was a period of consolidation in which the survival of Islam as a unified entity was secured against all odds. Abu Bakr's tenure as Caliph lasts just over 2 years, but its impact is monumental. He is remembered not only as a military leader, but as a man of unwavering faith and integrity. Before his death in 634, Abu Bakr ensured a smooth transition of power by appointing Umar ibn al-Khattab as his successor. This decision reflects his deep understanding of the need for stability and strong leadership. Abu Bakr's final words encapsulate his life's mission. Let not your religion be divided. Hold fast to the rope of Allah. Historians widely acknowledge his pivotal role in preserving Islam during its most critical period. As Hugh Kennedy writes, Abu Bakr's caliphate was a crucible of leadership, proving that Islam was not merely the religion of Muhammad but the faith of a people who could carry his vision forward. The Ridda Wars were more than a series of military campaigns. They were a defining moment in Islamic history. Through his resolve, Abu Bakr transformed Islam from a fragile coalition of tribes into a unified polity capable of withstanding both internal and external challenges. His legacy endures not only in the survival of the Ummah, but in the principles he upheld: justice, unity, and unwavering faith. Abu Bakr's caliphate marks the beginning of Islam's journey from the Arabian Peninsula to the world stage. In 634, Abu Bakr, the first caliph, passes away, leaving behind a unified Arabian Peninsula, but an Ummah still in its infancy. With the Ridda Wars concluded and Islam's survival secured, the Muslim community looks toward a new leader to guide them. Abu Bakr's choice for his successor is Umar ibn al-Khattab, a man known for his towering physical presence, unyielding sense of justice, and unwavering dedication to Islam. Umar's caliphate, spanning 10 years, becomes a transformative era in Islamic history, characterized by unprecedented military conquests and administrative innovation. His leadership cements Islam's role as a global power. As historian Hugh Kennedy writes, Umar's caliphate was the most dynamic and formative period in the history of the early Islamic empire, laying the foundations for a state that would endure for centuries. Tariq Ramadan, in the Footsteps of the Prophet, reflects on Umar's qualities. His profound sense of justice and his ability to listen to the grievances of his people made him a model of leadership that continues to inspire Muslim governance to this day. Wael Halak, in The Origins and Evolution of Islamic Law, notes, Umar's administrative reforms were not merely pragmatic. They reflected an effort to align governance with the ethical principles of Islam, ensuring accountability and equity within the rapidly expanding empire. Umar's leadership was as much about moral and social justice as it was about conquest and governance. His policies established a foundation for the Islamic State, transforming it from a fledgling community into a dynamic and enduring empire. Before his conversion to Islam, Umar is known as a staunch opponent of Muhammad and his message. A member of the Quraysh tribe, Umar is a man of strong will and fiery temper. However, his life changes dramatically when he hears the Quran recited by his sister. Struck by its beauty and power, Umar embraces Islam, becoming one of its most loyal followers. During Muhammad's lifetime, Umar serves as a trusted advisor, renowned for his boldness and clarity of thought. His wisdom and strength make him a natural choice to succeed Abu Bakr. Umar's ascension is not without challenges. Known for his strict and uncompromising nature, he initially faces resistance from some within the community. Yet, his reputation for fairness and his close association with Abu Bakr ultimately secure widespread support. Upon becoming caliph, Umar addresses the Ummah saying, "O people, I have been appointed as your leader, but I am not the best among you. If I do well, help me. If I do wrong, correct me." These words reflect Umar's humility and his commitment to accountability, principles that define his rule. In the summer of 636, the Muslim army, numbering approximately 25,000, faced a Byzantine force nearly 3 times its size near the Yarmouk River in modern-day Jordan. This confrontation was pivotal, with the fate of Syria hanging in the balance. Under the command of Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Muslim forces demonstrated exceptional tactical brilliance. Khalid strategically utilized the terrain, positioning his army along narrow valleys to counteract the Byzantine cavalry's numerical superiority. For 6 grueling days, the Muslim forces withstood relentless waves of Byzantine attacks, their resilience proving critical. In a decisive moment, Khalid seized the opportunity presented by a sudden sandstorm that disoriented the Byzantine troops. Launching a counterattack with precision, he broke their lines. The Byzantine army crumbled, and their general, Theodore Tritherius, was killed. Tariq Ramadan, in the footsteps of the Prophet, highlights the broader implications of this victory. The triumph at Yarmouk was not just a military conquest, it symbolized the extraordinary discipline, unity, and vision of the early Muslim community, enabling them to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Al-Halak, in the origins and evolution of Islamic law, reflects on the transformative nature of such battles. These early victories were not merely expansions of territory. They laid the groundwork for a new social and political order, one that would integrate diverse cultures under the unifying principles of Islamic governance. The victory at Yarmouk decisively ended Byzantine dominance in Syria and set the stage for further Muslim conquests, forever altering the balance of power in the region. It was a defining moment, showcasing the strategic acumen and unyielding resolve of the early Muslim leadership. Following the victory at Yarmouk, Muslim forces advance on Jerusalem. The city, a holy site for Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, surrenders peacefully after negotiations in 637. Umar himself travels to Jerusalem to accept the city's surrender. The scene is one of profound humility. Riding on a simple camel, dressed in modest clothing, Umar refuses to enter the city on horseback. His conduct exemplifies the principles of justice and humility in Islam. When Christians request that their churches be protected, Umar grants them safety, issuing a treaty that ensures their religious freedoms. This document, known as the Covenant of Umar, becomes a model for coexistence. As historian Karen Armstrong notes, Umar's conduct in Jerusalem set the tone for Islamic governance. His respect for other faiths and his commitment to justice won the admiration even of those who opposed him. While the Byzantines are reeling from their defeat at Yarmouk, the Muslim forces turn eastward to confront the mighty Sassanian Empire. At Qadisiyah, on the banks of the Euphrates, the two armies meet in a battle that will decide the fate of Persia. The Sassanians, led by their legendary general Rostam Farrokhzad, deploy war elephants to intimidate and overwhelm the Muslim army. But the Muslim commander, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, adapted quickly. Archers target the elephants, causing panic among the Sassanian ranks. The battle culminates in a daring assault on Rostam's position. Rostam is killed, and the Sassanian army collapses. The victory at Qadisiyah opens the gates to the Persian heartland. As historian Hugh Kennedy observes, the conquest of Persia was not just a military triumph, but a civilizational turning point, bringing the wealth and sophistication of the Sassanian world into the Islamic fold. The Muslim forces press on, capturing the Persian capital of Ctesiphon, one of the wealthiest cities of the ancient world. The city's fall marks the effective collapse of Sassanian resistance. In the aftermath, the Muslims implement policies that ensure stability in the newly conquered territories. Local populations are treated with respect, and Persian administrators are retained to maintain governance. Al-Halak, in the origins and evolution of Islamic law, observes, the Muslim approach to governance in conquered lands was pragmatic and inclusive, incorporating local traditions and administrative expertise to ensure a smooth transition of power. Tariq Ramadan, in Islam and the Arab Awakening, notes, by retaining existing structures and respecting local customs, the early Muslim leadership demonstrated a political wisdom that fostered trust and minimized rebellion among the conquered peoples. Hugh Kennedy, in The Prophet and the Age of the Caliphates, writes, the fall of Ctesiphon was not just a military victory, but a testament to the administrative and political acumen of the Muslim rulers who transformed conquest into sustainable governance. While Umar's conquests are remarkable, his true genius lies in his administrative reforms. Recognizing the vastness of the Islamic Empire, Umar establishes systems that ensure effective governance and justice. Umar introduces the Diwan, a centralized register that records soldiers' names and ensures they are paid regularly. This system not only rewards military service, but also creates a professional army. Umar implements fair taxation policies, ensuring that non-Muslim subjects, known as dhimmi, pay a tax called jizya in exchange for protection and exemption from military service. Landowners pay the kharaj, a land tax, which becomes a vital source of revenue for the state. Wael Halak, in The Impossible State, notes, Umar's reforms exemplified the balance between pragmatic governance and ethical considerations, setting a benchmark for administrative justice in Islamic history. Tariq Ramadan, in the Footsteps of the Prophet, observes, Umar's policies ensured that conquered populations were not only integrated, but also respected, laying the groundwork for a pluralistic society within the early Islamic Empire. Hugh Kennedy, in The Great Arab Conquests, writes, Umar's establishment of the Diwan and taxation systems was revolutionary, creating a framework that sustained the empire's expansion while ensuring fairness and stability for its diverse populations. These policies foster economic stability and earn the respect of local populations. Umar establishes an independent judiciary, appointing qualified judges to ensure justice is administered fairly. His personal involvement in legal matters becomes legendary. In one case, a Jewish man files a complaint against a Muslim governor. Umar listens impartially and rules in favor of the Jewish plaintiff, demonstrating his commitment to justice. Wael Halak elaborates, Umar's administration reflected a profound commitment to the principles of equality before the law, ensuring that justice was not compromised by status or faith. The assassination of Umar ibn al-Khattab in 644 AD marked a tragic turning point in Islamic history. Umar, known for his unyielding sense of justice and transformative leadership, was attacked by a Persian slave, Abu Lulu'a, during the Fajr prayer in Medina. The motivations behind the assassination remain debated, but the act underscored the growing tensions within the rapidly expanding empire. Tariq Ramadan, in The Footsteps of the Prophet, reflects on Umar's death. The loss of Umar was not only the end of a remarkable leadership, but also the beginning of internal challenges that would test the unity of the Ummah. Wael Halak, in Sharia, Theory, Practice, Transformations, notes, Umar's assassination revealed the complexities of managing a pluralistic and expanding empire, where differing interests and grievances began to surface more acutely. Hugh Kennedy, in The Great Arab Conquests, observes, Umar's death left a void that would profoundly impact the early caliphate, as his strong hand had been crucial in maintaining stability during a time of rapid conquest and change. The assassination shocked the Muslim community and brought to light the fragility of leadership in an empire that had grown exponentially under Umar's rule. His passing was not just a personal loss, but a moment that signaled the beginning of new and difficult challenges for the Ummah. Umar ibn al-Khattab's caliphate is a story of vision, courage, and justice. Through his conquests, he expands the Islamic State to unprecedented heights. Through his reforms, he creates a system of governance that balances power with accountability. Umar's legacy is not just in the lands he conquered, but in the principles he upheld: justice, humility, and service to the Ummah. His leadership transforms Islam from a fragile community into a powerful and enduring civilization. In 644 AD, the Islamic Empire stands at a crossroads. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph, has been assassinated, leaving behind a vast and rapidly expanding state. The Muslim community faces the challenge of finding a successor who can consolidate these conquests, maintain internal unity, and guide the Ummah through this critical period. The choice falls on Uthman ibn Affan, a member of the influential Umayyad clan and one of the Prophet Muhammad's closest companions. Known for his piety, generosity, and humility, Uthman's election marks a new chapter in Islamic history, one of both significant achievements and profound challenges. As historian Hugh Kennedy writes, Uthman's caliphate was a defining moment in the early history of Islam, characterized by remarkable expansion, but also internal divisions that would alter the course of the Ummah. Born into the powerful Quraysh tribe, Uthman ibn Affan was a wealthy merchant renowned for his integrity and generosity. He was among the earliest converts to Islam and one of the Prophet Muhammad's closest confidants. Uthman's devotion to Islam was evident from the beginning. He endured persecution in Mecca and later emigrated to Medina, where he supported the nascent Muslim community with his wealth. Uthman's contributions included financing the army during the Battle of Tabuk and purchasing the Well of Rumah to provide free water for Medina's residents. Tariq Ramadan writes, Uthman's unwavering generosity in the most trying times not only sustained the early Muslim community, but also set a precedent for ethical leadership and charity in Islam. While Halak observes, Uthman's acts of charity and support for the Ummah demonstrated the essential link between faith, wealth, and communal responsibility in early Islamic governance. And Fred Donner concludes, Uthman's role in the formative years of the Ummah showcased the pivotal influence of wealthy and committed individuals in the consolidation of the Muslim community. These acts of generosity earned Uthman a reputation for selflessness and devotion, laying the groundwork for his later role as the third caliph of Islam. Following Umar's assassination, a council of 6 companions, appointed by Umar himself, convenes to select the next caliph. This shura, or consultative council, includes prominent figures such as Ali ibn Abi Talib and Uthman ibn Affan. After days of deliberation, Uthman is chosen, largely because of his experience, diplomatic temperament, and widespread respect among the Quraysh. Upon his election, Uthman addresses the Muslim community, emphasizing his commitment to upholding the principles of justice and the Quran. Uthman's caliphate, lasting 12 years, is marked by significant achievements, particularly in the consolidation and administration of the rapidly expanding Islamic State. One of Uthman's most enduring legacies is the compilation and standardization of the Quran. As Islam spread into new territories, variations in Quranic recitation began to emerge, threatening the unity of the Ummah. Uthman takes decisive action. He commissions a standardized text based on the compilation made during Abu Bakr's Caliphate, ensuring that all copies of the Quran across the empire are identical. This version, written in the Qurayshi dialect, becomes the definitive text of the Quran, eliminating discrepancies. As historian Fred Donner explains, Uthman's decision to standardize the Quran was not merely an administrative act, but a profound effort to preserve the unity of the Islamic faith. However, this decision is not without controversy. Uthman orders all non-standard copies to be destroyed, a move that some perceive as heavy-handed. Under Uthman's leadership, the Islamic State reaches its greatest territorial extent. Muslim forces continue their advance into North Africa, capturing strategic cities such as Tripoli. In the east, they consolidate control over the Sassanian remnants, securing Khorasan and further expanding into Central Asia. Uthman also strengthens the Islamic navy, a move that proves critical in confronting the Byzantine Empire. The Muslim navy's victory at the Battle of the Masts, 655 AD, marks a turning point in Mediterranean naval warfare, establishing Islamic dominance in the region. Hugh Kennedy, in The Prophet and the Age of the Caliphates, writes, "The territorial gains during Uthman's reign reflected not only military prowess, but also the cohesion and ambition of the rapidly growing Islamic State." Tariq Ramadan, in the Footsteps of the Prophet, observes, Uthman's era marked the transition of the Muslim community into an expansive empire, carrying its spiritual and political values across continents. Wael Halak, in Sharia, Theory, Practice, Transformations, adds, the naval innovations under Uthman exemplified the adaptive strategies of the Islamic State, ensuring its survival and dominance in an increasingly interconnected Mediterranean world. Through military expansion and naval advancements, Uthman's caliphate solidified the Islamic State's position as a global power, shaping the geopolitics of the medieval world. To manage the vast empire, Uthman appoints governors and administrators, many of whom are from his own Umayyad clan. While this policy helps centralize authority, it also sows seeds of resentment, particularly among those who view these appointments as nepotism. Uthman's fiscal policies, including reforms to land taxation and revenue distribution, are aimed at ensuring economic stability. However, his centralization efforts alienate some local leaders who feel sidelined. Despite his achievements, Uthman's caliphate becomes increasingly contentious. Accusations of favoritism and corruption begin to circulate, particularly regarding his Umayyad appointees. Critics accuse Uthman of appointing his relatives to key positions, including Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the governor of Syria, and Abdullah ibn Sa'd, the governor of Egypt. While these individuals are capable administrators, their close ties to Uthman fuel allegations of nepotism. Wilfred Ferdinand Madelung, died in 2023, was a German author and scholar of Islamic history, widely recognized for his contributions to the fields of Islamic and Iranian studies. In his book, The Succession to Muhammad, a study of the early caliphate. From 1998, he writes, Uthman's reliance on his Umayyad relatives was not unusual for the time, but in the context of a rapidly changing Islamic state, it was perceived as a betrayal of the egalitarian ideals of the early Ummah. Uthman's centralization of wealth distribution creates significant economic disparities. The concentration of resources in the hands of certain governors and elites leads to widespread dissatisfaction among ordinary Muslims, particularly in regions like Kufa and Egypt. In one notable incident, Uthman gifts large sums of money to members of his family, prompting criticism from figures such as Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, a companion of the Prophet known for his asceticism. By the final years of Uthman's caliphate, opposition to his rule has reached a boiling point. Dissidents from Egypt, Kufa and Basra converge on Medina, demanding Uthman's resignation. Uthman refuses, declaring, "I will not remove a garment that Allah has clothed me with." In 656 AD, the rebels besiege Uthman's house. For weeks, tension escalates as the caliph remains confined. Despite pleas from his supporters to defend himself, Uthman orders his guards to refrain from violence, seeking to avoid bloodshed. On the final day, the rebels break into Uthman's residence. The elderly caliph is found reciting the Quran. In a tragic and poignant moment, he is struck down, his blood staining the holy book he sought to preserve. As historian Hugh Kennedy reflects, the assassination of Uthman was a turning point, marking the end of the unity that had defined the early Islamic State and ushering in an era of division and civil war. Uthman's death plunges the Muslim community into turmoil. The unity forged under Abu Bakr and Umar fractures, giving rise to the first fitna, or civil war. The assassination of a caliph, an act unthinkable just a generation earlier, sets a dangerous precedent. Uthman's legacy, however, is not defined solely by controversy. His efforts to standardize the Quran ensure the preservation of Islam's holy text. His expansion of the empire lays the groundwork for future conquests. As historian Jonathan Burkay writes in The Formation of Islam, Uthman's caliphate was a period of transition, marked by the growing pains of a rapidly expanding state. His achievements were overshadowed by the divisions they inadvertently fostered. Uthman ibn Affan's caliphate was one of consolidation and controversy, achievement and tragedy. He expanded the Islamic State to its greatest territorial extent, preserved the unity of the Quran, and sought to maintain the principles of justice and faith. Yet his reliance on his Umayyad relatives and the growing inequalities within the empire sowed seeds of discord that would shape the future of Islam. Hugh Kennedy summarizes, Uthman's rule was a pivotal moment in the history of the Islamic State, one that reflected both its achievements and its vulnerabilities. The assassination of Uthman ibn Affan, the third caliph, plunges the Muslim community into its first major crisis. For the first time, a caliph has been violently overthrown, and the unity of the Ummah, so painstakingly forged under Abu Bakr and Umar, is now in jeopardy. In this moment of turmoil, the community turns to Ali ibn Abi Talib, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. Ali is renowned for his piety, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to justice. Yet his caliphate will be marked by deep divisions and the first civil war in Islamic history, known as the First Fitna. As historian Wilfred Madelung writes in The Succession to Muhammad, Ali's caliphate represents the tragic struggle between principle and pragmatism, a conflict that would shape the future of Islam for centuries to come. Ali ibn Abi Talib was born in Mecca in 600 AD into the influential Hashemite clan of the Quraysh tribe. Raised in the household of the Prophet Muhammad, Ali was among the first to embrace Islam, doing so as a young boy. His devotion to Muhammad was unwavering, and he demonstrated extraordinary courage on numerous occasions, such as during the Hijrah, when he risked his life by sleeping in Muhammad's bed to thwart an assassination plot. As an adult, Ali became known for his eloquence, his mastery of Islamic jurisprudence, and his prowess on the battlefield. He played a crucial role in key battles, including Badr, Uhud, and Khandak, earning the title Asad Allah, or the Lion of Allah. Reza Aslan is an Iranian-American scholar of sociology, one writer and television host. A convert to evangelical Christianity from Shia Islam as a youth, Aslan eventually reverted to Islam. Regarding those events, he notes, Ali was the embodiment of faith and valor, a figure whose loyalty to Muhammad and the principles of Islam was unmatched. In the aftermath of Uthman's assassination, the Ummah is deeply divided. In Medina, many of the Prophet's closest companions and prominent figures call for Ali to assume leadership. Despite his initial reluctance, Ali accepts the caliphate, recognizing the need for stability. Upon his election, Ali faces an immediate challenge: how to address Uthman's murder. The rebels who killed Uthman have entrenched themselves in Medina, claiming their actions were justified by Uthman's alleged abuses of power. Ali condemns the assassination but faces immense pressure to bring the perpetrators to justice. As historian Hugh Kennedy writes in The Prophet and the Age of the Caliphates, Ali's position was inherently precarious. By accepting the caliphate, he inherited both the authority of leadership and the burden of the divisions that had led to Uthman's death. The First Fitna is not merely a political conflict. It is a struggle for the soul of the Muslim community. At its heart lies the question of justice for Uthman, and the legitimacy of Ali's rule. The first major confrontation of the fitna occurs near Basra, where Ali's forces face an army led by Aisha, the widow of the Prophet Muhammad, alongside prominent companions Talha ibn Ubaidullah and Zubair ibn al-Awwam. They demand justice for Uthman and accuse Ali of failing to punish the rebels. The two sides meet at the Battle of the Camel, named for the camel upon which Aisha rides, serving as a rallying point for her forces. Despite efforts to negotiate, tensions escalate into open conflict. The battle is fierce and tragic as Muslims who once stood side by side with the Prophet now fight against each other. Ali's forces prevail and Talha and Zubair are killed. Aisha is captured but treated with respect and sent back to Medina. Layla Ahmed is an Egyptian-American scholar of women's studies and religion. In 1992, she published her book Women and Gender in Islam, which is regarded as a pioneering historical analysis of the position of women in Arab Muslim societies. In mentioned book, she notes, Aisha's involvement in the Battle of the Camel underscores the complex and often contradictory roles women played in early Islamic history as both leaders and symbols of moral authority. The next major challenge to Ali's rule comes from Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the governor of Syria and a member of the Umayyad clan. Muawiyah refuses to pledge allegiance to Ali, demanding retribution for Uthman's murder. The standoff culminates in the Battle of Siffin, a prolonged and inconclusive confrontation near the Euphrates River. After weeks of skirmishes, Ali's forces gain the upper hand. But in a dramatic twist, Muawiyah's troops raise copies of the Quran on their spears, calling for arbitration. Ali, reluctant but pressured by his advisors, agrees to halt the fighting and engage in arbitration. This decision alienates a faction within his own ranks, known as the Kharijites, who denounce both Ali and Muawiyah for abandoning the battlefield. As historian Hugh Kennedy writes, the events at Siffin marked a pivotal moment in Islamic history, where the struggle for power intertwined with religious symbolism, creating divisions that would resonate for centuries. Wael Halak remarks in The Origins and Evolution of Islamic Law. The decision to resort to arbitration during the Battle of Siffin underscored the challenge of reconciling political pragmatism with the moral and theological principles of Islam. Tariq Ramadan, in Islam, The Essentials, observes, the Battle of Siffin revealed the complexity of leadership within the Muslim community as the quest for justice and unity clashed with the realities of political ambition. The Kharijites, initially supporters of Ali, became his most fervent critics. They believed that Ali's acceptance of arbitration is a betrayal of divine justice. This radical faction stages rebellions across the empire, forcing Ali to divert his attention from larger threats. In 658 AD, Ali confronted the Kharijites at the Battle of Nahrawan, decisively defeating them. However, their ideology persists, and they become a lingering source of unrest. Despite the turmoil, Ali remains committed to the principles of justice and equality. He relocated the capital from Medina to Kufa, a more central location, to strengthen his position and ensure better governance. Ali's leadership is marked by efforts to uphold the ideals of the Prophet's teachings. He insists on a modest and accountable administration, refusing to enrich himself or his family. He emphasizes the importance of education, encouraging the study of the Quran and Islamic jurisprudence. As historian Tariq Ramadan writes in The Footsteps of the Prophet, Ali's governance was rooted in a profound sense of ethical responsibility, reflecting his belief that leadership was a trust, not a privilege. In 661 AD, Ali's caliphate comes to a tragic end. While praying in the mosque of Kufa, he is struck down by a Kharijite assassin named Abd al-Rahman ibn Muljam. Mortally wounded, Ali dies 2 days later. His final words reflect his unwavering faith. By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have succeeded. Ali's death marks the end of the Rashidun Caliphate and the beginning of the Umayyad dynasty under Muawiyah. As historian Hugh Kennedy reflects, the assassination of Ali was a watershed moment in Islamic history, signaling the definitive collapse of the unity that had characterized the early Muslim community. Ali ibn Abi Talib's legacy is one of principle and sacrifice. He is remembered as a paragon of justice, a master of Islamic jurisprudence, and a fearless defender of the faith. Yet, his caliphate was marked by the divisions that would give rise to the Sunni-Shia split. For Shia Muslims, Ali is regarded as the first Imam, the rightful successor to Muhammad, and a martyr who upheld the truth against overwhelming odds. For Sunnis, he remains one of the rightly guided Caliphs, a symbol of piety and leadership. Wilfred Madelung writes, Ali's life and caliphate encapsulate the tensions between the ideals of the early Islamic state and the realities of political power. His legacy continues to inspire and divide in equal measure. Ali ibn Abi Talib's caliphate was a story of faith and conflict, principle and pragmatism. Through his leadership, he sought to preserve the unity of the Ummah while staying true to the teachings of the Prophet. His legacy endures in the hearts of Muslims worldwide as a symbol of justice, courage, and devotion. Thank you for watching. This was the second episode in our series on the history of Islam, where we explored the turbulent era of the Rashidun Caliphate. But the story is far from over. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to watch our first episode, where we uncovered the origins of Islam and the rise of the Prophet Muhammad. And if you love deep historical storytelling, don't miss our best video yet, Anglo-Saxon Saga, The Long Road to United England. And stay tuned, next week we'll release a special episode addressing the historiographical questions surrounding the traditional narrative of Islam's origins, as presented in this video and in our episode on the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Don't miss it.